Well, good morning. My name is Danny Rojas, and I'm going to talk about some results of our research group. Basically, I'm going to talk about mutualistic interactions and diversification of a group of bats from the tropics of the New World. As ecologists and evolutionary biologists, we are interested in global biodiversity patterns. A central question is why there is so much heterogeneity in the way life is distributed in our planet and in the tree of life. We wonder why some places on Earth are biodiversity hotspots, and why some clays in the tree of life show a remarkable taxonomic and ecological diversity, while others remain species poor and ecologically constrained. Of course, the ultimate explanation of this pattern of species richness lies on the three processes that directly modify the number of species in a given location: speciation, extinction, and dispersal. Speciation and extinction themselves are influenced by a group of factors, including ecological interactions. There is overwhelming evidence of the role of predation and competition as promoters of divergent selection. However, the role of mutualism is less clear. We know the example of clownfishes and sea anemones as a textbook example of mutualism. Also, clownfishes are an example of the role of mutualism in driving diversification. These authors found that the rate of species diversification and morphological evolution on clownfishes was higher than that of their closest relative, damselfishes, that are not associated to sea anemones, which suggests that this mutualism of clownfishes with sea anemones acted as a key innovation that promoted the diversification of this group. Then we have also another example, another textbook example, this one regarding pollination systems with columbine flowers, where the author found a change in spore length in relation to shifts to pollinators with different tongue length. Of course, studies with pollination systems provide contradictory results about the role of mutualism in diversification. We have also the study of Yoder and co-workers, where they found that when there is a phenotypic match, when the outcome of the relationship depends on a phenotypic match of the pollinator and the flower, then this constrains diversification. With frugivory, the examples are not so abundant than with pollination system, probably because there is less evidence of the role of coevolution in a system like fruit dispersal and fleshy fruit producing plant. In this case, we have this work with primates in which authors found that in both living and extinct primates, those that are frugivorous has a higher diversification rate than antagonist or non-frugivorous primates, which was related, as suggested by these authors, to expansion range. We have a group of bats in the New World, which are a good study system to test the role of mutualism and levels of specialization for frugivory in diversification. They are the bats of the family Phyllostomida, which in this family evolve adaptations to nectar and pollen consumption and fruit consumption, which differentiates this family in the New World from the other animal-eating bat families. So frugivory in the family of Phyllostomid bats is very abundant in more than 3/4 of the taxa of this family. And if we go back to the beginning of this century, Freeman suggested that frugivory was the synapomorphy that triggered the diversification of the group that allowed Phyllostomid to escape the insectivore morphospace and diversify. More recently, Monteiro and Nogueira found that the evolution of the family was driven by shifts to other feeding habits from the insect and ancestral insect feeding habit during the first 10 million years of the Miocene. And more recently, the team of Elizabeth Dumont found that a change in school shape in a group of Phyllostomid bats allowed the exploitation of fruits with a particular characteristic and was related to speciation rate. Also, at local level, phyllostomid co-occur with other noctilionoid bats from other families, which are animal-eating bats. And this provides a very interesting both geographical and evolutionary framework to test whether diversification rates are associated with specialization for frugivory and how this pattern varies between mainland and the Antilles. In this case, we expect to find a different outcome of this relationship because in islands, in general, species tend to have broader niches and higher extinction rates than the mainland counterparts. So what we did and what we found in our work. First, we estimate a phylogeny of the New World families of the superfamily Noctilionidae based on both nuclear and mitochondrial markers, and we calibrate that phylogeny in time, and then we gather information about the feeding habits of the lineages, and that allows to classify lineages in antagonistic and mutualistic, and also to establish 4 levels of specialization for frugivory, from non-frugivorous to strictly frugivorous lineages. And we use 2 models that estimate speciation, extinction, and transition rates between any pair of states to examine whether ecological role, in this case antagonism and mutualism, and whether the levels of specialization for frugivory were related to the diversification rates of the group. We found, you can see at this plot, that mutualistic lineages show higher diversification rates than antagonistic lineages. This pattern was consistent both for mainland and Antillean genera. And also, if you go to the other graph, you see that strict frugivorous show the higher diversification rates compared to the other genera classified in the other 3 groups. So what could explain this? Well, explanations are hard to find. There's something curious, and it's the fact that both adaptations to nectarivory and to frugivory evolved in parallel in independent lineages of the family, as you can see here. So this might be related to the possibility of a shift given the coexistence with insect-eating families, and so they shift to new habits that might trigger the diversification related to the changes, to the morphological changes that has been described before. And this didn't occur once, it occurs at least twice, both for fruit-eating and nectar-feeding bats. Also related to shifts in diversification rates of flowering plants that occur between 2 heat peaks during the Miocene. We also analyze the relationship between clade age and total clade diversification measured as the log number of species richness to see if older genera are more species rich because of their age. And we found that this relation was not significant. We suggest that the given pattern of species richness that we observe is not explained, at least as main factor, by the age, the stem age of the clades. So we explore which other factors could explain this pattern of species richness. And so we quantified, we have quantified the specialization for frugivory, and we measure also the forearm length of the species and body weight at 2 measures of body size, and also the range size occupied by each lineages, and the number of ecoregions as a surrogate of habitat diversity in which each lineage occurred. We have to summarize these variables because they were correlated with the phylogenetic principal component analysis, and then we apply a phylogenetic generalized least square model to examine the relationship between the 2 first components and total clade diversification and net rate of diversification, which is another measure of diversification that take explicitly into account extinction rates. We can see that specialization for frugivory show a contrasting pattern between mainland and Antilles. In mainland, as more specialized, more relation with diversification rates. Not so in the Antilles, probably because in islands, resource limitation may have be a constraint to the diversification of two specialized lineages. Also, a contrasting pattern was detected in body size, but I want to call your attention to range size and number of ecoregions, which the relationship with diversification rates were positive in the two biogeographical scenarios, and this supports the hypothesis that occupation of new habitats may be a source of ecological opportunity that potentiates or that may influence positively events of speciation. So if we know that phylostomic bats are effective seed disperser and that they expand the range of the plant from which they feed. So it's at some point logical to think that by expanding the range of their own mutualistic patterns, they are creating their own opportunities to diversify by occupying those new habitats. So to this moment, what we found is these positive relations between mutualism and diversification rate, but we have, of course, a lot of more questions to answer. And also, we have, fortunately, another group of bats, this time from the Old World, in which mutualistic adaptations also evolved. So we are now planning a project to analyze how was this behavior between diversification rates, morphological innovation, range expansion, and, of course, mutualism between phylostomic bat from the New World and theropodist bat from the Old World. Thank you very much, and I'm open to your questions. Mutualism. Also, clownfishes are an example of the role of mutualism in driving diversification. These authors found that the rate of species diversification and morphological evolution on clownfishes was higher than that of their closest relative, damselfishes, that are not associated to sea anemones, which suggests that this mutualism of clownfishes with sea anemones acted as a key innovation that promoted the diversification of this group. Then we have also another example, another textbook example, this one regarding pollination systems with columbine flowers, where the author found a change in spore length in relation to shifts to pollinators with different tongue length. Of course, studies with pollination system, speciation and extinction themselves are influenced by a group of factors, including ecological interactions. There is overwhelming evidence of the role of predation and competition as promoters of divergent selection. However, the role of mutualism is less clear. We know the example of clownfishes and sea anemones as a textbook example of... Well, good morning, my name is Dani Rojas, and I'm going to talk about some results of our research group. Basically, I'm going to talk about mutualistic interactions and diversification of a group of bats from the tropics of the New World. As ecologists and evolutionary biologists, we are interested in global biodiversity patterns. A central question is why there is so much heterogeneity in the way life is distributed in our planet and in the tree of life. We wonder why some places on Earth are biodiversity hotspots and why some clays in the tree of life show a remarkable taxonomic and ecological diversity, while others remain species poor and ecologically constrained. Of course, the ultimate explanation of this pattern of species richness lies on the three processes that directly modify the number of species in a given location: speciation, extinction, and dispersal.